Welcome back to the Everything Property Podcast. You've seen it on your newsfeed again. Another builder has gone bust. What's happening in the construction industry? What's happening with builders? Should you be building at this time in this current climate? Have construction prices stabilised? To help us answer these questions and to see if building and construction can make up a part of your investment strategy is Sam Lambert. Sam quit school in Year 10, has been in construction since. He now runs the successful and award-winning HS Building with his partner Hayley. Mr. Sammy Lambert, welcome to the Everything Property Podcast.
Cheers, thanks for having me on.
That's all right. Thanks for making the trek in, mate. Look, I want to dive into it first and foremost. You're a Macarthur region boy and you quit school in Year 10. So I think I want to dive into that first because, you know, uni's not for everyone and extra study after going to university, all that kind of stuff isn't for everyone. So take us through a little bit about your last couple of years of school and when did you decide you wanted to be a builder and be hands-on in a trade?
Yeah, I think I was pretty lucky growing up at early ages. I sort of always knew I'd be in the construction industry. I think from looking back now, probably Year 6 there. I think we had a Year 6 yearbook and it says, what do you want to be when you're older? And it was a carpenter builder. So pretty much ever since that day, I always sort of knew going into high school that I would probably leave in Year 10. It's probably back in them days, it was 2006 is when I left. It wasn't really worth going to Year 11 and 12 if you knew you're going to get into construction or take up a trade. So left in Year 10, I probably wasn't the most smartest academic kid out there, but I just knew I sort of just had to hang in there and just finish the year off and straight out of that and straight into a first year apprenticeship in carpentry.
So you're Year 10, so you're 16 years old?
Yeah, 16, yeah. So I finished in 2006 and I was 16 and sort of got my driver's license at the same time and then the next year and then straight in on red peas and 17 years old and doing a job.
How do you land that first gig as a 16-year-old little rat bag?
Yeah, it was tough. It was back in them days. It wasn't as easy as it is now. It's to sort of pick up an apprenticeship. I sort of had to just ring around and work for free on weekends and just do even when I was at school in the school holidays, just try to ring up different builders just to get some experience up and hopefully that was going to lead into it. And then after a few phone calls, a local guy, he ended up giving me an opportunity. So it was always tough too when you don't really have your license too and you got to get your parents to drop you off, pick you up, but sort of just had to do what you had to do to get that first gig. But at them times, it definitely wasn't easy. So you sort of had to put your head down, bum up and work hard and show them that you sort of, you're worthy of a job.
Okay, and then did you stay at the same place for the next 3 years for your apprenticeship, or how does it work with carpentry first, building, all that kind of stuff? What's the pathway?
Yeah, I think I sort of jumped around for about 2 or 3 different employers. I sort of wanted to learn as much as I possibly could. And sort of in carpentry, some guys specialise in your framing, your fit out, sort of internal work. So I wanted to sort of get as much experience as I possibly could because I sort of always knew that once my time was up in my apprenticeship that I would probably end up starting my own company. So I probably had about 2 or 3 employees thinking back then. And then, so I just sort of, spent about a year and a half with each of them and then got enough experience. So when as soon as I sort of finished my time, I think I might have got signed off a little bit early and then literally straight into my own business as a carpentry-based company, which was, I think at the age of 19 or 20, a little bit daunting, but it was good. So
you're doing frames and stuff first? Or?
Yeah, just started off doing some frames and eaves for the sort of the larger builders and just subcontract work. Just had a team of probably 3 or 4 of us at the time, a couple of mates. They sort of just had to scramble and find any employees you can. So I had a few mates working for me and then even my younger brother sort of stepped up to be an apprentice. So he jumped on board and then, just sort of done that for about 2 or 3 years, running my own carpentry-based business. And then I wanted to progress into the building side of things. So to do that, you sort of had to go and get a bit of experience working for a builder. So I worked for a large home builder in Sydney, did my sort of 5 to 6 years there, picked up my Cert 4 and then sort of progressed into the building construction sort of degree and got my license. And then, and after that, that's where H&S sort of evolved.
Okay, and talk to me along you started H&S. H&S is obviously Hayley and Sam Building. So where does your partner come into this journey in terms of where does sort of Hayley and that you guys sort of come together and come up with this idea? Because it's pretty daunting to be able to say like, you know what, let's go for it. Let's start our own construction business and be building homes.
Yeah, definitely. I was pretty I've been with Hayley for, I think it might be 14 years now. I'm married for 4 and 10 years before that. So I got with her when I was sort of 19 years old. So she's been there from pretty much the early days. It's me still being a sort of apprentice carpenter. So, But she sort of finished school, went into uni. So she's a primary school teacher. And then she was doing that, and then we kicked off H&S in 2020 actually, just sort of as COVID hit.
Great timing.
Yeah, I know it was daunting, but we already had it all pre-planned for 6 months, but she was still school teaching at the time. So like any business, when you start it, you just got to put the hours in, put the time in, and she was sort of doing all the paperwork, admin stuff after hours on weekends. So sort of went through that grind for the first 1 or 2 years, and then about 2 years ago we had our first child, a daughter. So she left school, went on mat leave, but it wasn't really mat leave when you work for yourself. So some crazy sort of thoughts there with looking back now when just trying to raise a daughter and run a business. But since then she sort of just does 3-4 days a week now for the business, and also try to be a mum at the same time as well.
Mate, that's quality. Tell me, the first job, or is there a first big gig that you land that sort of puts H&S on the map?
Yeah, I suppose we've been pretty lucky. The business has grown sort of quite dramatically over the last 4 years.
I've noticed that too, yeah.
So being very grateful is always my goals to sort of keep pushing the boundaries. But when we first made the call, we didn't really have any work lined up. But there was a lead there that I worked on the South Coast. It was a small renovation. And then once I secured that was sort of just gave me that bit of momentum. And then just naturally, some other, word of mouth, people sort of talk. And then with sort of our first renovation was sort of $300,000 renovation down the South Coast, and now we're lucky enough and grateful to be working on $1 to $2 million properties. So it's it's been a bit of a journey.
So you didn't really have anything. You had that reno as a lead. Didn't have anything else lined up, but you went, let's go for it. Yeah,
that's right. It was a lead there, and I was hoping to secure it, but at the same time, you just got to go with it. You sort of can't wait around, and you keep procrastinating, and you think you're going to do this, you do that. So I just thought, stuff it. Let's just make the call. I think it was June 30 that year. We just finished up with my sort of full-time employer, and just we went out and just got back onto it, and just started on the tools again, and had to do all the work demo, and then as the time progressed, the team grew, and only had 2 or 3 guys at that point of time, and now we've got a set of team of 16 with a couple of girls in the office. So it's growing quite quickly in the last 3 to 4 years.
Wow, man! Congratulations. Well, look, tell me, that's a good sort of explainer. I feel how I want to sort of steer this conversation, and for people listening along at home, they will know that we're in sort of investing strategies in the Everything Property Podcast, that foundation, and one of those strategies is obviously going to be building, whether it's house and land packages, building on the back of property you already own, subdividing, extensions, all that kind of stuff, different ways to be able to pull out a profit, manufacture some equity. But I guess hearing it from a builder, or a question I'd probably ask you first is, there's a lot of builders going bust, and that would probably, for the mums and dads and listeners out there, put a lot of doubt in their mind into building and going with the builder. But what do you see personally from the other side of the lens, why those sorts of builders are going bust and how that's happening? What do you think?
Yeah, I think, unfortunately, it has been sort of quite a number of big builders go under. And I think what it comes down to is these larger volume builders, they turn over obviously high volume, but they're working off low margins too. So obviously, when COVID sort of first kicked off, and then the government gave out a lot of grants, it sort of stimulated the building sort of industry there. There's plenty of inquiries coming through. So a lot of these larger builders was, and were doing record numbers each year. And then obviously, as everyone knows, inflation, the price of materials went up. And then in the meantime, these builders are stuck into fixed price contracts. And then they've had to absorb sort of all them sort of, them price increases from the suppliers and trades. And then I suppose the builders were managing that, and then all of a sudden the economy, then obviously the interest rates go through the roof. So that really then obviously affects the first home buyers and people looking to get in the market. So these large volume builders are doing, 100, 200, 400, 600 homes a year. Their sales are probably dropping by 30, 40%. And that's sort of it's not easy to sort of, keep running on them sort of numbers. So unfortunately, like a lot of companies just sort of try to make people redundant, try to do what they could, but just really couldn't hang in there. And unfortunately it gets to a point where it's just not viable for them. But I think for the smaller guys that are sort of, ain't running 4 to 5 jobs a year sort of thing, like we do, you can afford to sort of maybe get down to 2 or 3 at any one time, but then you can manage to run 6 or 7. So we're not sort of, too top heavy, which I think is what's kept the smaller guys going, but it's been tough for the larger guys.
Yeah, okay. So they sort of lock into a fixed price contract, and they say, look, if we only make 5% on each contract a year, and we do 200 builds, there's good profit in there. But once materials and prices go up, they lose that. Then they've obviously copping a loss over a couple hundred houses. And
Yeah, 100%. Well, when you think about these guys that are doing, and say 80 to 100 million a year and working on about a 5 to 6 sort of % profit margin, which is great when you're sort of looking at them numbers. But as soon as your materials start to rise anywhere from 15 to 30%, it's just not viable. So that's where it's definitely hurt them. And if you haven't got a lot of old money that you've sort of put away over the last few, in 20, 30 years, it's hard if you're running on new money.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Well, look, that's a good little explainer as well, because I see the same thing, and I can sort of see how it's happening too. And there's some other things at play, but yeah, essentially it's a fixed price contract where they say we'll build your home for $1 million. Everything goes up. It costs them 1.1 million. They make a loss of 100,000 or something on one house, and if they're doing like the volume you said, then it starts to creep up quite quickly. I guess one thing I want to ask you as well, being a builder, are people still using fixed price contracts? What are the different contracts that we can use? Are you guys still using them, or is there different contracts that people can now use, or that builders are using now to cover themselves?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, fixed price was sort of the most common, but I think in the last 2 to 3 years with COVID, there is a contract out there. It's cost plus. So a lot of people are hesitant to do that, especially the homeowners, because there's no real, exact number at the end there, but at a point there about 18 months ago, a lot of builders just wouldn't even go near a fixed price because we just didn't know what was happening. Things were changing by the week, by the month. So you couldn't keep your finger on the pulse quick enough. But yeah, look, they sort of work both ways. Some people like the flexibility of a cost plus contract. We've got a couple of them in place at the moment. And sometimes when you've got a large scale renovation and you sort of need that variance, you can do a fixed price, but builders will just naturally have to sort of just load up on contingencies there just to sort of cover them for the unknown, especially for the renos. But yeah, there's obviously your cost plus or your fixed price.
Just break down for me what a cost plus contract is.
So pretty much what it would be is, a builder would definitely have to give a client an estimate on what they think that project's going to cost. And then up to the builder that works out what margin they're sort of happy to work off. And then obviously every invoice that comes through, that sort of particular margin, that % margin gets added to that invoice, and that's what covers the builder's overheads. And then, so it's sort of a bit of an open book, but if you sort of manage it right, it can be a great way to do it if both parties are on board.
Okay, but then the builder give us sort of an estimate at the start.
Yeah, definitely.
And then what sort of margin are they sort of smaller scale builders working at? Is there like if someone's thinking about doing a cost plus contract, what sort of margin should they be working off with the builder? Is it 40%? Is it 80%?
I wish it'd be nice. Look, roughly, I reckon you could average out around that 25% margin. It all depends on the size of the project too, how much supervision is going to need to go into it. Yeah, and some guys could be running smaller numbers, but then that can be ring alarm bells at the same time as well, because obviously there's a lot of, like you said before, there's a lot of builders going under, so you don't want to lock into a contract with a builder who's trying to just sort of underdo it a bit, and then all of a sudden he sort of falls over halfway through construction too. So. But yeah, averaging it out, probably that 25%. Okay.
And then what are, I mean, it might be a little bit biased because obviously you're the builder, but what are some of the checks that do you think that if I'm listening to this, I'm thinking about using a builder that I can go through and ask what sort of the questions or what are some of the checks I can ask a couple of builders to sort of get an idea for who might be the best for my project?
Yeah, I think definitely, when people come to us, I suppose it's always good to, 2 or 3 sort of builders that's in their in their line of sight who they're looking to build with, and then probably ask to go see some of their current projects they've got going on or speak to previous clients. That's the best thing to do. I think anyone can write a testimonial and put it up on a website, but to sort of speak to previous clients or current clients or go walk through them projects, and you can soon see, if that all adds up. So,
fair enough. Look, talk to me about a little bit about current and current projects and future projects then, because I know there was I might chuck it up and time it on the Instagram when we do release this one live, but there was for example like Winuna Duplex, you guys just recently won some awards for too.
Yep, yeah, that was a great project that sort of went a bit viral there. Everyone followed along on the journey. It was in a great location. So yeah, it was a pretty incredible home to finish that one, and then to win sort of 2 or 3 awards for it too was sort of, yeah.
What are the awards? Just
it's through the Master Builders and HOA sort of associations, where it's pretty much down per category. So it's like a dual lock sort of townhouse category.
Yep.
And then the judges come through and they sort of go different criteria, I suppose, sort of like how you sort of went with the budget and, and the size of the home, the finishes. So yeah, it's yeah, it's definitely rewarding to sort of go to these events and get an award for a home that you sort of was a bit of a masterpiece.
Because the price for that was that per side of the duplex. It was in the 5 to 600K category, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. I think it was, from memory, 5 to 600K, and that goes off per side. So a lot of people are thinking, oh, that's just one, that's the whole thing. And I had a few messages saying, oh, I'll build 10 of them. But yeah. And look, that one was probably just as COVID was kicking off, so it didn't have all these crazy price increases that we're receiving now. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we wouldn't be able to build that one for the same price, unfortunately. But
okay. Cover yourself there. Well done.
Yeah, well, that's right. A lot of people go, oh yeah, how much is that one? But it just moved so quick in that last 18 months. So, mm-hmm. But yeah, it's not far off it really. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on a lot of people I see asking about square meter rates and construction costs? Because that's essentially, everyone knows what you're going to, if they're doing developments or if they're building, everyone knows either what they're buying for and what they're selling for. It's pretty easy to find. I can go on realestate.com and stuff like that. But the one sort of, the biggest thing in your feasibility, I think that moves is obviously what you buy for, what you sell for, and what you build for. You've also got contingencies, you've got GST, you've got council costs and all that kind of stuff. And contributions, that's all pretty small scale stuff in the scheme of things. So in terms of construction costs, do you guys work off, is there any rule of thumbs at square meterage or costs per dwelling or anything like that you guys are working off at? Or is it case, like how are you going about costs?
It's definitely sort of case by case, but I do, when someone does inquire, and I can give them a rough square metre price, but we're not a builder that works off a square metre price when it comes to quoting. Obviously, all our jobs are sort of, they're custom, they're unique, they're all got their different bits and pieces in them. So, but yeah, it's definitely a guide that a builder can give a square metre rate to. And especially it's crucial when you are designing a home to keep that number in your head because, there's no point sort of blowing out this big design, but if the budget doesn't align to it, it's just a bit of a waste of time.
Well, that probably leads into my next couple of questions. One is, do you have any guides that sort of at the moment for like new home builds, luxury home builds or duplex builds that, that it might not be just H&S, but like market rates and stuff like that to sort of give people a bit of like a bit of insight into what construction prices are now?
Yeah, look, I normally work off sort of around that 2,500 to 3,000 a square metre for your sort of, your custom sort of architectural designed home.
Yep.
Obviously, your double story is going to be closer to your 3,000. Your single is probably more around that 2.5. Mm-hmm. And then when people are talking duplexes, I sort of just throw out anywhere from 3 to 3.5. And that's the guide to sort of start the design stage. And then once the sort of preliminary plans come back, then we fine tune it with what the client's must-haves are, what they want. And then just go through the whole program and just make sure we sort of align the budget with the design and the inclusions that they're after.
Well, that's my next question is people always feel like people want to build the biggest and best project for the smallest and cheapest price. But what are some of the tips that you guys would recommend in terms of not building the absolute shittest thing ever, but being able to save or reduce cost or be smart about cost? Like, what are some of your sort of findings from the last couple of projects?
I think the first thing is to get the right architect, designer or draftsman on board because they can have a major impact sort of on the design, which can ultimately sort of lead to, extras in structural steel costs if things aren't sort of aligned correctly. So I definitely say when we're designing to, work out your budget. A lot of people try to sort of, hide away from the budget question, but that is so critical for us and crucial to then get the design and the square meters right because, there's no point sort of just saying, I don't have one or cheap as possible because it just doesn't give us a starting point. So I think that, and the biggest thing is to just not waste square meters in the floor space because so many designers out there can just throw these big, large rooms in, but they're not practical. And obviously every square meter comes at a cost too. So I'm about trying to save on the square meters. Everyone obviously, like you said, wants this big grand home, but sometimes you got to fill it and it just doesn't feel right and doesn't feel comfortable and doesn't feel homely. So I think getting the square meters right and then just being smart about the inclusions and just sort of, having a budget and sticking to it.
What's the biggest waste of money for inclusions?
I think it just comes down to square meters, just having rooms that are too big just for no reason. Who want this massive master bedroom, but it's just, it's 10 square meters too big. It's ultimately $25,000, and just in that as well. And then as they're going through that design,
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
yeah, so it's sort of what I see when I look over a set of plans. I make sure I can find any cost opportunity savings along, where I can see it as well. And then that's why it's always key to sort of get a builder and an architect and the owner collaborating as early as you possibly can to try to prevent these things from happening.
So find the right architect. I think I have posted previously on how to find sort of consultants and those type of guys, but bringing the builder in before these things are approved and reviewing the plans, and then being upfront and honest with the square meter price, would you say is?
Yeah, definitely. That's crucial because once you sort of get that design, and if you haven't sort of engaged a builder and then you put it into council, could be in there for 12 months, and then all of a sudden it comes out, and then you go try and find a builder, and every builder is obviously $300,000 more than what your budget was because you sort of didn't collaborate early. Yeah, that was a bit of a common occurrence there a couple of years ago. I feel like people are now changing the way they think, and they definitely want to get the builders on board early with the architect. And it just makes it just so much better when you've got an architect putting in his ideas, you've got the builder putting in his ideas, and then the client at the same time. It's just the perfect way to keep everything aligned, keep it on budget, and tick all the boxes for the client.
Is there any wastes in like fixtures, finishes, and all that kind of stuff that you see? Is like people put it in, but it's not really worth it in the end, or anything like that comes to mind that you see no real value in?
Oh, depending, there's obviously so many different materials and things that go into homes, but yeah, I suppose when it comes to each of the selections, there's a lot of clients, when they're looking at stone, they start thinking, do I go marble or do I stick with the smart stone? Obviously, that's all changing now with the new regulations coming in play, but I suppose when you're sort of looking at each individual item, you can sort of go crazy on a kitchen. Instead of spending 30, spend 60, and it's just, you do that sort of multiple times throughout the build, it can really add up. So I'm big about just trying to find that happy medium point where it's a good quality material at a good price and has the looks and the feel of what you expect. Yeah,
okay. So look, you said you previously mentioned before, what's the current pipeline with H&S, and what are some of the projects that you guys are working on at the moment?
Yeah, so we pretty much run anywhere from sort of 4 to 6 projects at any one time. Obviously, it's always tough to get the timing right. We're on the verge of sort of finishing a couple of projects at the moment, and we've got a large scale, a $1.8 million renovation on a 2-acre block. About to start a dual lock down, another one in Woonona as well, which is sort of opposite the beach. So that's going to be a really nice project too, which I'm sure will win some awards. We're also currently finishing off some incredible projects in Thirroul and in Corrimal there, in Wollongong. And then, we've got another one coming up in Bowral on 100 acres, really nice sort of country home there. So, a bit of variety, which is nice. And it's definitely, a bit of both worlds, sort of, in the Southern Highlands and out on the South Coast as well. So it's definitely...
Is that coincidence that, like, those areas, or it's just like you build one really good project in one street and then obviously people come knocking? Like, how do you get down? You're from Macarthur, but how do you get down to South Coast and sort of into that market?
Yeah, I think definitely going back to that Dorrigo Avenue Woonona project sort of put us on the map a little bit down there. It's definitely the two areas that I'd like to work in, on the South Coast and then the Southern Highlands. And then, like I suppose we've even got 2 jobs in the one street there in Corrimal now. So it's a matter of people driving around, seeing it, and then all of a sudden it just evolves, and it's pretty crazy how quick it can evolve.
Well, talking about evolving and stuff, what would you say is, what's the end goal? What are you guys sort of working towards with H&S? Is it you want to be the next big home builder? You want to keep it the size you're at? Do you have a staff number, or like what's the goal? What's the end vision?
Yeah, I definitely don't want to be at a large home builder. I think where we're at now is the perfect number. It grew pretty quick to where we got to, but I think within the last 12 months now, it's really stabilised sort of the staff numbers and the job numbers. So just want to keep it that 4 to 6 sort of projects. I think eventually in the near future, we will sort of look at maybe doing some of our own projects as well, securing sites, and building sort of custom luxury homes on them, and then trying to move them on at the end. And even so that dual lock market as well. It's a great market, especially down South Coast there. There's a lot of people sort of doing knockdown rebuilds and putting up a duplex and then subdividing it, and a bit of property development there as well for clients and potentially for us.
Yeah, okay, perfect. And are you guys you're in Picton? Is that your dream PPR, or do you have like some big monstrosity that you want to build and work towards, or you're happy sort of where you're at now?
I'm definitely happy, but at the same time, I'm always eager to do something else. And for Hayley's sake, she just wants to stay put sometimes for a bit, but I'm always thinking of the next big grand plan or something. But look, Picton's been great for us. Obviously, got our daughter there, raising her up there, and family and friends around us. But I definitely wouldn't mind moving maybe eventually down the South Coast. I do love that part down there. But I just, at the moment, it's just sort of full steam ahead with the business, and then just, see where things go, I suppose,
Well, it's good to see you have grown as well, especially on socials, and the projects get bigger and better and nicer. I'll definitely link the Woonona one because that was top notch. Look, tell me, being on a construction site for the last whole decade, what are some of the best? What's some of the worst things you've seen?
Oh, worst things, I suppose. Over the years, you sort of see trades just, doing some crazy, dodgy things when it comes to safety and stuff like that. And that's probably going back 10 years ago when it wasn't so strict. But I suppose, unfortunately, you sort of, there's accidents that happen on sites, sort of, and I'm lucky enough that we haven't, had anything. But what we do is obviously higher risk. Definitely touch wood there because, but look, nothing too crazy at all. It's really, I've sort of witnessed. There's, I remember seeing probably a couple of years ago there in one of the estates, we were working close by, a builder, can't remember who the builder was, but put up a whole double-story frames and trusses. Yeah. And that night, Sydney sort of copped a big windstorm, and the next day, the whole frames and trusses, flooring, the whole lot was flat on the ground. And obviously no one got hurt because it happened during the night, but that's probably something pretty crazy that I've seen, but obviously it wasn't nothing to do with myself, thank God. But I suppose it's a crazy industry, but I haven't actually witnessed anything too crazy yet. So, who knows? I've got plenty of time to come. So,
touch wood, thank God. Look, in terms of the builds and what you're working at the moment, another question I have with construction is timeframes and obviously materials, labour and all that stuff that was going through the roof. It was hard to get people during COVID and stuff. Has that sort of leveled out? And what are sort of your typical timeframes now for home and dual lock builds? Have they blown out? Have they come back? What's the sort of how are we looking now in the forecast for the rest of the year and stuff?
I think this year's sort of been coming back from the Christmas break. It's been a bit of breath of fresh air because I feel like it's a bit of normality back in the building and construction industry now. Prices have definitely relaxed. In certain materials like timber has come back sort of, probably 30-40% too, which is great because at one point it was just growing at a crazy rate, couldn't even get it. So I think now, obviously, that's always a question people ask, what's the sort of industry doing? But definitely this year I've noticed probably other builders obviously slowing up, and unfortunately the guys that are sort of going under, there's obviously a lot more trades out there now to sort of carry out the work. So we're sort of getting hit up a lot more from plumbers, electricians, tilers saying, hey, do you have any work? Where 2 years ago you couldn't find a tiler. If you didn't have one locked in, you couldn't find him. So it's definitely, and when it comes to build times, I suppose, the average build time is probably that roughly 12 months for a double story. Geolocks can get up to maybe 14 months. So the time frames are probably going to slowly get a little bit better, but at the same time, we sort of don't rush the builds as well. We rather just take our time, give everybody
luxury's
opportunity.
A little bit. I know project home builders are quicker than that. So luxury is a little bit bigger, a little bit longer, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot more inclusions in what we do compared to sort of the cookie cutter homes. So they can definitely put somebody out in probably in 16 to 20 weeks, but. The way we put things together is a little bit different. It's sort of, it's all the same thing at the end of the day, but and the inclusion's a bit there. Everything's a little bit bigger, so it takes a little bit longer. But like I said, everyone, I can rush it and do it in 10 months, but what are we rushing for an extra 2 months? Let's just do it right, give everyone an opportunity to do their work and to do it right. And then, you put people under pressure. Everyone looks at the block and think, we can build it in, in 1 week. But it just doesn't work like that. It's, especially with OH&S and stuff these days, you can't have people on top of people. So,
I think the block is as great as it is to watch, like with construction timelines and how sites work. Like people don't understand that site, like each of those houses is like 50 or 60 trades working on it simultaneously. It's just really unrealistic to like the construction industry, right?
Yeah, 100%. So it's good to watch on TV, definitely, but it's in real life it just doesn't work. There end up be fights, arguments, and no one's happy.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Well, look, I usually ask towards the back end of the interview, what's one piece of information? What's a bit of a golden nugget that you can lay for the audience that are watching in terms of building, construction, and that sort of stuff?
I think it's a pretty brutal industry sometimes. It's the highs are highs and the lows are lows, and it's definitely being a business owner in this industry. It's definitely tough, and it can be lonely sometimes. It's sort of nice to have people that you can sort of network with as well. And probably one thing that I've sort of been learning over the last few months is about sort of that sort of emotional sort of state. Sort of be mindful where I am, because emotional management is a lot sort of more important than time management. Is one big thing I've been learning lately, and.
Yep.
And that's just a matter of like when you sort of things aren't going to plan, things aren't right, you just sort of keep yourself positive, motivated, determined, and just make the right calls when you're in the sort of right frame of mind. So that's been one big thing that I've definitely learned over the last few months, because everyone's about time management, but if you're running around all day just not happy, things aren't working, and your headspace is not right, it's you don't end up making the right calls, and you're not as productive as you can be.
I like that one. That was that's not what I was expecting. So, quality. Look, tell me, Mr. Sam Lambert, what's a quote you live your life by?
I definitely do love a good quote, and I've probably got a few there. I reckon probably the one I probably live by the most. A little bit corny, but it's it's hard work does pay off, and dreams do come true. Because over the last few years, I'm a big about setting goals and trying to achieve them, and then. When you sort of when you set yourself a goal, it's a bit of a dream at the same time, and then just sort of putting that hard work, that dedication into it. It's amazing what can happen when you just sort of devote yourself to it, and it's rewarding. And then when you stop and reflect and you look back, I suppose that's even more rewarding too, to see from how far we've come to where we are now.
Yeah, that's true. That 16-year-old apprentice running around sites on his speed plates.
Yeah, that's it. Sort of, doing all the shit jobs at the start, and then eventually sort of move up the chain. And it's great. It's all part of the journey too. And it's been a great career so far. And I'm only 33, so I've sort of got another 30 years ahead of me too. So it's I'm looking forward to it.
And you're telling me as well, like earlier, you've got a couple of those young boys on site now that are at a similar age to where you started.
Yeah, definitely. It's we got a few apprentices that work for us as well. So I like to give the young guys an opportunity, because someone did give me that opportunity back in the day too. And I like to watch them evolve and sort of grow and mature as sort of 15, 16-year-olds now, and then sort of come up through age of 20, sort of finish their trade. And it's hard to find sort of good young motivated kids too at the moment. Everyone sort of wants to leave school and go to uni or do some sort of AI job and make heap of money, but. When I find a young kid that's dedicated to be in the industry, I like to put a bit of time and effort into them as well, because we need these younger guys coming through to keep this industry going.
What's a bit of advice that you'd have for any of those younger guys that are sort of coming up through the ranks, maybe late teens, early 20s, sort of looking to do something that you're doing something similar, want to run their company one day? What's some advice you'd have for them?
Yeah, I think definitely just sort of find the right employer, find and they're doing the sort of what you want to do eventually, sort of, and stick by them. A lot of guys sort of want to chase a buck too, and think, these guys pay me a bit more. But look, just find the right employer, work hard, dedicate yourself to it, and then if you don't sort of move up the ranks, I suppose within that company, there's going to be plenty of opportunities to go out and do your own thing. So. It's just about sort of, staying dedicated, but at the same time, it's tough when you're that sort of 17, 18, you start to go out partying and all that sort of stuff. So it's just about, just sort of finding what you want to do and stick to it, and just keep grinding away.
Perfect. Well, look, Sam Lambert, thank you so much for joining us on the Everything Property podcast.
No worries. Thanks for having me.